Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Me? Well, it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. The tree is up at Demolition News Towers, the gifts are wrapped, there's enough food in my fridge to feed an entire village, and we're on the verge of yet another lockdown. So, for the penultimate time this year, let's roll that intro and get this show on the road. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to post in the chat our question of the day. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I'm your host, Mark Anthony. It is Thursday the 23rd of December, and as that remarkably persistent guy just said, welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, there is no escape for dodgy directors as the Insolvency Service is granted new powers. The HS2 project celebrates a landmark year. Mecalac makes merry for the festive period, and you can feel free to take it easy and relax over Christmas because Ausa technology has got you covered. We will get to all of that in just a second, but first, let's see who among the rich and the shameless is celebrating a birthday on this day of days.
Happy birthday!
And it's many happy returns to Shakin' All Over singer Johnny Kidd and to Iron Maiden guitarist Dave Murray, to actress Joan Severance, TV presenter Carol Smiley, and to former child star Corey Haim. Happy birthday also to tragic socialite Tara Palmer Tompkinson and to glamour model Jodie Marsh. Many happy returns to them, one and all. It's a story as old as time and as frustrating as hell. The directors of a limited company sense that all is not well with their business, so they dissolve it, leaving their supply chain out of pocket and possibly facing financial difficulties of their own. Meanwhile, those same directors are busily setting up shop under a new name with the same staff and generally from the same premises, their hands seemingly washed clean of any stain from the previous company. At least that's how it has traditionally worked. But now, rogue directors who dissolve their companies to avoid paying liabilities to staff, creditors, and the taxpayer can now be disqualified from being a director. The Insolvency Service has been granted new powers to tackle unfit directors who dissolve companies to avoid paying their liabilities. The new legislation extends the the new legislation extends the Insolvency Service's powers to investigate and disqualify company directors who abuse the company dissolution process. Business Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng said these new powers will curb those rogue directors who seek to avoid paying back their debts. The Insolvency Service has powers to investigate directors of companies that enter a form of insolvency, including administration and liquidation. The Act extends those investigatory powers to directors of dissolved companies, and if misconduct is found, directors can face sanctions, including being disqualified as a company director for up to 15 years, or, in the most serious cases, prosecution. The business secretary will also be able to apply to the court for an order to require a former director of a dissolved company who has been disqualified to pay compensation to creditors who have lost out due to their fraudulent behaviour. Limited liability just got a whole lot less limited, and not a moment too soon either.
The Miller GT series heralds a new era of unrivaled power and cutting-edge intelligent coupler technology, increasing job site safety, machine versatility, and productivity. It's the added versatility that you need at the value you can afford. To find out more, visit millergroundbreaking.com.
There was a time not so long ago when Christmas meant my office being filled with Christmas cards and gifts, and even the odd hamper or two if I'd been particularly well behaved. These days, however, the cards have been few and far between. The gifts have amounted to a few calendars, and there is just a solitary hamper that I've already started to consume. You see, companies these days have seemingly done away with gifts of old and are now spending their spare Christmas cash on producing festive videos. Videos like this. In fairness to Mecalac, they did actually give me and my fellow construction hacks some very nice gifts earlier in the year, so I really shouldn't grumble. So, yesterday morning, just as the show ended, I received a phone call from a demolition contractor who was rightly disgruntled. I won't name him here for reasons that will become obvious, but here's the basic details of what he told me. His company had won a job on a 2-story building. Access was difficult as the ground floor was locked and there were no keys available. When he eventually gained access, the first floor was all clean and precisely as described, but the ground floor and the basement were riddled with asbestos. The demolition contractor in question believes that a team had been sent in previously to strip the building, but had left when they had encountered that asbestos. So our demolition contractor raised the alarm. A number of asbestos companies bid on the job, and the top 3 came in at somewhere between £25,000 and £27,000, with very, very little to choose between them. I promise I will get to the point in a second. Anyway, the client clearly wasn't in the mood to pay nearly £30,000 to remove the asbestos, and instead found someone that agreed to do it for £9,000. In time-honoured tradition, you pay peanuts and you get monkeys. So the bargain basement asbestos company started removing the hazardous material with the building's windows open. There was no tenting, and it was being carried in open bags near pedestrians. When our very sensible demolition contractor voiced his concerns, he was informed that his services would no longer be required. And here is where it starts to get interesting. Having warned the client, the demolition contractor kept a close eye on the project, and sure enough, demolition work is underway literally as we speak. It seems highly likely that any remaining asbestos, and there most certainly was some, will simply be mixed in with all the other arisings from the project and then transported to the nearest landfill or C&D waste facility, causing further exposure. So, rightly again, the demolition contractor advised the HSE of his concerns. Supposedly, an inspector was sent to the site and the matter remains under investigation, even while the public, demolition workers and the personnel at the waste site unlucky enough to take delivery of this toxic load are being exposed. So, given that the show was over, given that I have precious little to do with my time, I called the HSE inspector myself and laid all of this before him. He said repeatedly the matter is under investigation and that he was unable to comment. But here's the thing. That material containing potentially deadly asbestos is going to arrive at a waste site at some point very, very soon. Our demolition contractor, who works locally all the time, has already warned all the local tips to be aware. And so any asbestos contained within those C&D arisings will quickly be identified and their source traced. But that demolition is taking place right now. The HSE knows it's taking place right now. It knows that demolition workers, waste workers, and the general public are being exposed right now. But instead of slapping the entire site with a prohibition notice and bringing the exposure to a halt, the HSE is instead compiling a report. What good is a report if people are being exposed to asbestos fibres? How will that report help anyone that subsequently develops an asbestos-related illness? How will that report offer any comfort to the families of anyone harmed by that exposure? Now, I'm going to be watching this one with considerable interest, and when the brown and sticky stuff does finally hit the proverbial fan, I will have no hesitation in naming the HSE inspector that is placing protocol above public health. There is a paper trail of inaction and potentially harmful intransigence on the part of the HSE, and I will not hesitate to report it. Who polices the police? Or if you're a comic book fan, who watches the Watchmen? In this case, I guess I do.
Axoft and Svantec are your high-end partners for noise, vibration, dust and air quality systems, sensors and software. To find out more, visit axoft.co.uk or call 01234 639 550.
Over the past 215 shows, we have brought you dozens of new machines, hundreds of videos, and literally thousands of news stories. But during those 215 shows, there has been one project that's been on screen almost as much as I have, and that project is HS2. Now, with the year fast drawing to a close, the team behind HS2 have produced a new video that charts their many accomplishments during 2021. And we have that film for you right now. All of that would be remarkable at any time, but to have achieved so much in the midst of a global pandemic and several national lockdowns is truly incredible. So hats off to the team at HS2. It's almost time to turn on the out-of-office message on your email account and to divert all incoming calls to voicemail while we all take a well-deserved break. If you're like me, however, that is a bit of a mixed blessing. The thought of not having to get up each morning to fashion a live show out of nothing is unquestionably appealing. But being self-employed, there is always that nagging thought in the back of my head. Is my business okay while I'm eating my own body weight in turkey? Well, those fine folks over at dumper maker Ausa clearly sense our pain, And while delivering their Christmas message this year, they are reminding us all that technology is basically a team of electronic elves beavering away in the background to ensure that all is safe and well. Take a look at this. Sadly, I don't possess that kind of technology, and I haven't yet figured out how to clone myself, so it looks like I'll be back here again tomorrow for the final time this year.
Sorry to interrupt the guy with the funny glasses, but if you're enjoying this video, please hit the like button as it helps our channel. Or, better still, share this video with a friend or a colleague. Thank you. Right, back to Beardy.
Right, that pretty much wrapped up today's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the chat to see what you're all saying today. As I just said, I will be back here on the morrow, usual time, usual place, for more of this old stuff and nonsense for the last show of the year. But until then, stay safe, look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. And thanks very much indeed for watching.